Good morning. I'm running late today. Oh my gosh, we've been bargain hunting. Sorry, so sorry. Welcome to Soaring Solo with Stacy. This is a community of single moms who are trying to rise above society's expectations and do better for our kids and for ourselves. And I'm so glad that you can join me. Say hi if you're watching this. I would love to hear from you. We're going to talk about working yourself out of a job today. So last week we talked about making sure that our kids become productive members of society, strong, solid adults, right? This hopefully in some form or another is, I have stuff on my shirt. How distracting. Anyway, random thought, girl. So last week we were talking about having those parental goals, those goals as a parent to make sure that your kids are productive members of society. Hopefully you have some form of that on your parenting goal list. Okay, I hope so, because we want to raise good kids, right? Not just good kids, but kids who know how to take care of themselves and who can actually contribute to society in some way, shape, or form, right? But the hard part of that is we have to, in order to do that, we're going to work ourselves out of a job. That means they're not going to need us anymore. That means they might go to someone else for advice. They might be able to figure it out on their own, and they really don't need us. And that is hard. And I think it's double hard for single mamas because who else do we have? Right? So it gets really lonely. Loneliness is probably the number one problem, I would say. I guess that's the best word I can come up with for single moms. I think that's the number one struggle. Maybe struggle is a good word. Is the loneliness that comes with being a single mom, and we've got to learn how to deal with that. And by making sure that our kids, when our kids actually don't need us anymore, doesn't the thought of that sound incredibly lonely? It does to me. Maybe I'm the only one. But here's the problem. If our kids are going to depend on us too much, if they need us for everything forever, we're not raising healthy adults. They're never going to have healthy relationships. That dependency on us is going to backfire, y'all. So we have to work ourselves out of a job. And because our kids are pretty much like, they're not all we have, but sometimes that's how we feel, particularly right after we leave the relationship with their father. Or their father leaves us for various reasons, that's all we've got. And we tend to cling to that. So the thought of not having that is so difficult. And think about when they grow up and they turn 18 and they leave the house, and then you're sitting here all alone. Such a lonely feeling, and it's hard to deal with. So I want to give you a few ideas that hopefully will help you to be able to deal with the emotions, to deal with the difficulty, and to be able to kind of separate yourself and allow your children to move on with their life anyway. All right. So hopefully this helps. I would love to know if you have any suggestions. If you've been through that empty nest, you know what I mean. As a single mom, if you've been through the empty nest phase, I can't talk today, whatever. Let me know what you've done. I would love to hear that. I'm up for suggestions. I'm sure everyone else is too. I'm just going with what I feel like might help throughout as you're parenting while they're here to help let go a little bit at a time. But number one, I think the most important thing is you need to have friendships and interests outside of your child. And especially when they're younger or when the breakup with your ex is new, this is really hard. Now, there is a fine line because you still need to take care of your kids and they still need to be a priority. But your world should not revolve around them to the extent that you have nothing else. And if you're like me, I mean, I've told this story before when someone asked me, what do you do for fun? And I didn't. Everything that I could think of were things I did before Vance. I didn't do anything for myself anymore. That's not healthy. You need to have friendships and interests, like strong friendships and interests outside of your children. I have a lot of acquaintances. I love y'all. But people that I know I can call up and say, hey, I need to talk. Can we go grab coffee? How many people do you have in your life that would drop everything and do that? So you need to find your tribe. We talked about that before when I was in Boston. Find your people. And we're going to elaborate on that a little bit more, because finding your tribe is so important. Finding those other women that will support you, and you can support them as well, because it's a two-way street, and that you can kind of cling to when times are hard, and you can lift up when times are hard for them. We need that. That's a need. That's not a want. So if you're sacrificing your friendships for your children, you're doing them a disservice and yourself a disservice. You've got to find some strong, solid women with similar interests and values and beliefs that can help you, and you can help them support each other through difficult times. So important. Start dating. This is really controversial, and I don't think this is for everyone. Okay, so you may not be ready to start dating. In fact, sometimes I think we jump into the dating pool way too fast, and I'm going to get to that eventually. Dating is hard, but I'm going to tell you there's going to come a point where you're going to want someone of the opposite sex, but you're going to need to be super careful, okay? Because if you're not super careful, and if you don't allow yourself time to heal, and you don't figure out what it is you really want in a man, and if you don't take the time to set up some guardrails and some boundaries, which are real easy to break, FYI, if you don't have those things in place, you're going to repeat your same mistakes over and over and over. So that same issue that you had with the ex or exes, you're going to have it again if you don't sit down and figure this out. Whole different topic. I'm going way too far. We'll talk about that another time. Okay. But find somebody. Maybe that's what you need to start doing. Maybe you're at that point where you need to start doing that. But you need to have other people and other interests that don't involve your children. Okay. An interest that is not, I'm going to my son's football game next week. Okay. So think about that. Number 2, you know what? Pat yourself on the back for doing a good job. As hard as it is to teach your kids to be independent, and know that they don't need you anymore, that is a win for you. So when your kids can finally do their laundry themselves because you've taught them how to do it and they don't need you to do their laundry anymore, yes, can I get a hell yeah? I mean, this is the never-ending chores, laundry and dishes. I think those are the first thing kids need to learn how to do, because they're a nightmare. But anything, when your kid stops needing you, when your children stops needing you for certain things, sometimes that's really hard. They don't need me anymore. But you know what? You need to stop and go, that means I did a good job. They don't need me. They're figuring it out for themselves. They're able to do it without me. That is a huge win. Pat yourself on the back. Tell yourself you did a good job and go celebrate. All right? The third thing I would suggest is you need to, we were just talking about this in the car, you need to build a relationship with your kids to withstand time. Now, here's the tricky part. There is such a freaking fine line between being a parent and being a friend. When your kids are still in the house, you are in charge. You are not their friend, and that's super important. However, you have to still be friendly enough that they're open, that you have a relationship and you're building a relationship with them, and they're okay with talking to you about certain things, and they take your advice. It's important. There's a super fine line, and I'll be honest, it's hard to navigate. I struggle. We either tend to be parent all the time and not friends, very strict, or I'm their BFF and then no discipline happens, and that can't be there. There has to be a boundary, and you have to sit down and decide where that boundary is and then stand by it. Boundaries are so important. Maybe we should just talk about boundaries one of these days. Like, seriously, boundaries and everything. But here's the thing. One of my parenting goals is I want, when Vance is over the age of 18 and he's out on his own, whether he's in college or he is working a job or raising his own family or whatever, I want him to choose to come back and be a part of my life. I want it to be his choice to have me in his life, right? So I want to build that relationship with my son, that he knows I'm strong. He knows what I believe. He knows I have certain rules that we just don't bend on, but I've built such a loving relationship with him that he wants to be around me someday. It's tricky, but it's so so important. If they don't choose to come back, and sometimes they don't, and there's unhealthy each way, right? I'm sure you can probably name someone in your life who has a relationship with their parent that is unhealthy in the sense of they can't do anything without that parent and they're a grown freaking adult. I've dated some men like that. Seriously? Your mama has to go with you everywhere? This is not cool, right? Not cool. We don't want that, right? I don't know any, well, I shouldn't say that because I do know some. I don't know many women who want that for their kids, that they can't move on to a healthy relationship. And then they have I know other people that have no relationship with their parents, their moms. They despise them to the point that they don't even want to, I go out of obligation and that's it. I don't want that either, right? And I'm pretty sure you don't either. So we've got to find those boundaries where you can have a relationship and be friendly without being the BFF of your children. You're still in charge. You're still the boss. It's hard. It's difficult. But we've got to work ourselves out of that job, no matter how lonely it seems. But if you find your tribe, if you do that first thing, it's not going to be nearly as lonely because you're going to have some backup, right? You got people to go to and to hang out with when they're gone. And I think that's key right there. I hope you guys are doing well. I would love to have your input. What did you do to kind of help soften that loneliness blow? How did you deal with empty nest syndrome? That was what I was trying to say earlier that I couldn't get out. Give me some feedback. I would love to hear from you. I love to have the feedback. You can private message me if you're not comfortable putting things out on public comments. I get that too. It's no problem. I would love to have a conversation with you, and I would love to have you join my Soaring Solo group if you're not a part of it. We are small, but we are growing, and it's a great place to discuss our situations. And we're all, even though we're all in a similar situation, we're all very different, and it's great to hear those differences of opinions. I love it. It's fabulous. I love this tribe that we're building here. But you guys have a great day, and just remember that you may be soaring solo, but you are not tackling motherhood alone. We will talk to you next week.